and welcome to Pittsburgh City Council's public hearing for Wednesday, July 15th, 2020. My name is Kim Clark Baskin, and I'm the Assistant City Clerk. With us today, we have our sign language interpreter, Nick Miller. The following is a list of legislation up for discussion by Pittsburgh City Council. Bill number 404. Ordinance supplementing the Pittsburgh Code of Ordinances, Title II, Fiscal, Article 5, Special Funds, to add a new chapter, Chapter 237, Stop the Violence Fund, to prioritize the prevention of violence and crime within the communities and to create a budgetary obligation for the fund. Bill number 405, Ordinance supplementing the Pittsburgh Code of Ordinances, Title I, Administrative, Article 3, Organization, Chapter 116, Department of Public Safety, to add new subsection 116.02A, Duty to Intervene, by requiring sworn and unsworn police employees and officers to stop or attempt to stop another employee or officer from applying inappropriate force or knowingly depriving any person of any constitutionally or statutorily guaranteed right. Bill number 406, Ordinance supplementing the Pittsburgh Code of Ordinances, Title I, Administrative, Article 1, General Provisions, Chapter 103, Official Standards, by adding a new subsection 103.06, Prohibition on acquisition of military equipment or weaponry. Bill number 410, Resolution authorizing and directing the City Controller to transfer a total of $250,000 from police salaries, police recruit allowance, to the Stop the Violence Fund within the 2020 operating budget. That concludes the reading of the bills for this hearing. Thank you and have a great day.
Good afternoon, or evening now, and welcome to Pittsburgh City Council, City Council Cablecast public hearing. I will call this meeting to order. Our first order of business, we are joined today by Councilwoman Erica Strasburger, Councilwoman Deborah Gross, and Councilman Bobby Wilson. We ask now that the clerk would please read the title of the bills that we'll be discussing today.
Bill 404, Ordinance supplementing the Pittsburgh Code of Ordinances, Title II, Fiscal Article 5, Special Funds, to add a new Chapter 237, Stop the Violence Fund, to prioritize the prevention of violence and crime within communities and to create a budgetary obligation for the fund. Bill number 405, Ordinance supplementing the Pittsburgh Code of Ordinances, Title I, Administrative, Article 3, Organization 116, Department of Public Safety, to add a new subsection 116.02A, Duty to Intervene, by requiring sworn and unsworn police employees and officers to stop or attempt to stop another employee or officer from applying inappropriate force or knowingly depriving any person of any constitutionally or statutorily guaranteed right. Bill number 406, Ordinance supplementing the Pittsburgh Code of Ordinances, Title I, Administrative, Article 1, General Provisions, Chapter 103, Official Standards, by adding a new subsection 103.06, Prohibition on acquisition of military equipment or weaponry. Bill number 410, Resolution authorizing and directing the City Controller to transfer a total of $250,000 from police salaries to the Stop the Violence Fund within the 2020 operating budget. Bill number 487, Ordinance amending and supplementing the Pittsburgh Code, Title I, Administrative, Article 3, Organization, Chapter 116, Department of Public Safety by adding a new section, section 116.14, chokehold prohibition.
All right, thank you very much. We do have and one invited guest. I'm not sure if she's on the line. Shatera, are you here? Ms. Murphy, are you here? If not, I'll simply say on the behalf of the administration that we have, similar to the bill that we passed this morning, we have been working ongoingly with the public safety director, with the chief of police and the administration and the law department, and we want to thank them for their work and participation. We will have, when this comes back to council, there will be slight versions of the bill that has received their scrutiny and their touch, and we will bring them back to council when the bills come back on the table. With that, we now move into our registered speaker portion. We have 8 registered speakers, and so we will start. I will say your name and start off with your name and either your address or the area of the city that you reside. And so our first registered speaker is Anna Fisher.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Hello, Anna, with the wonderful accent.
Yes, my name is Anna Fisher. I'm a resident of Pittsburgh. I live in Squirrel Hill. Despite my accent, I am an American citizen and I do vote in each and every election. Thank you very much for this opportunity to speak to you today on these important issues. I will try to be brief and I will focus my comments on 2 bills. With regards to bill number 2020-04006, let me quote General Martin Dempsey, a former chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, who recently wrote, "America is not a battleground. Our fellow citizens are not the enemy." I hope that you agree with this simple statement. And if you agree, then I ask, if our city is not a battleground, and if our Pittsburgh residents are not the enemy, then why does Pittsburgh police need military-grade equipment? So the proposed bill to demilitarize city police has my full support. In regards to Bill 2020-0405, let me ask you this. If the mission of Pittsburgh Police is to serve and protect city residents, wouldn't this mission include protecting residents from illegal or unnecessary use of force by police officers? But this clearly has not been the culture or the expectation within Pittsburgh Police, and therefore the proposed duty to intervene bill is just a common sense articulation of the values that I hope we all share. This bill has my full support as well. And I think I have just a tiny bit of time left, and I apologize, I'm going to speak of something that is not on the schedule today. First of all, thank you very much for passing the legislation yesterday to address racial disparities in Pittsburgh. There is yet another report that Pittsburgh is the worst city for Black advancement in the nation. But in the news today, there was a city of Asheville, North Carolina, where the city council voted unanimously to provide reparations to Black residents. So I urge you to look at Asheville, North Carolina as a blueprint. I think it's a good start to pass legislation to create a commission, but I think it's not enough. I really think, I urge you to seriously consider reparations. Thank you.
Reverend, you're muted.
Thank you very much. And so this brings me to my second speaker. Hopefully you'll excuse the pronunciation. Ekana How Malinkana. Are you on with us? Ekana. All right.
She's here. She's here.
Okay. Ikuhana. It's Ikuhana. Okay. Ikuhana?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Oh, wonderful. Great. Thanks for having me. My title is Ikahana Hau Makina, calling in regards to the Iroquois Confederacy of Aboriginal American people. I want to say and speak directly to the demilitarization of the police, simply stating that hiring trained killers would be the best way to resolve that issue. You don't hire someone who has been trained for the sole purpose of killing people to become police officers. That is a common sense approach to demilitarizing the police. We also know to address the ills of systematic violence, We must get to the root cause of it. The violence across the nation can be directly traced back to the classification and classism and oppression, post-traumatic stress disorder, and years of oppression and lack of resources. In order to fix this, we must fund the equitable distribution of resources to communities that have been oppressed systematically. Dismantle a system that supports the have and have not mentality. Also, to restore fair housing practices, to support universal health care, restore trade skills in public schools, open recreation centers, community programs that would allow to facilitate the healing of our community. A Journey to Justice program is being offered by ICAP, which is the Iroquois Confederacy of Aboriginal American People. And with that, I yield. Thank you for your time and your respect.
Thank you very much. Appreciate you very much. Our next scheduled speaker is Carmen Brown. Ms. Brown, are you here?
I sure am.
Thank you very much.
My name is Carmen Brown, and I'm from the 9th Council District. And I just wanted to talk a little bit about my concern about how this money is going to be spent. And as you know, Councilman Burgess, you have failed the Black community. And a lot of us, you know, even though you got back in office, there's a lot of us who did not vote for you. Yes, you got back in, but the percentage, 60% of us didn't want you back in there because of the way you treated the Black community. And also, I wanted to bring up the fact that, you know, there's a lot of money involved here. You have actually created this stuff, the Violence Fund, which I have a lot of reservations about. Because anytime you get involved in anything, it's always something lucrative, okay? And like I said, and I've been saying before, that you have exploited the Black community. And again, I think that you are not the person, to be honest, that should have never even sponsored these particular legislation, because again, you have not done right by your people or Black people in your community. But again, like I said, is that this fund, the funds that the problem that I have, again, like I said, these funds should be directed or should be looked at by the people in the community. We should make a decision over what we want, how we want to spend this fund, not you, and not put it in a fund that you can control. Because most of the time that you want to control this money and we don't have any idea where this money is. So again, we want to be able to control this money. We want to know exactly where this money at. You just gave Operation Better Block $100,000 for some type of police prevention, and that money, they're not doing anything for Homewood. They're not doing anything for that community. We don't see how that money is being spent. So again, I have reservations about you and how this money is going to be spent. So again, that we need to be able to regulate this money, not you. Because again, like I said, is that you have people that these nonprofits that you give money to, these people, because you're able to operate this. And somehow this money is going to probably get back into your pocket. So again, like I said, is that this money should not be regulated by you, Reverend Burgess, Ricky Burgess. Thank you.
Reverend, you're muted.
I mute myself so that, you know, there's no background noises so the speaker can be held when I cough, and then I forget I mute myself. All right, our next speaker is Levon Ritter.
Hello, thank you, Councilman.
Thank you.
My name is Levon Ritter, and I'm from Bloomfield. So let me go through the bills one by one. So for 2020-404, something that I didn't like about this bill was that the funding is in proportion to the Pittsburgh police budget, which incentivizes the Pittsburgh police budget to keep increasing each year. I think this is counterintuitive to the goal of the bill, and instead the funding should be totally independent of the Pittsburgh police budget, which I think needs to be decreased. Moving on to 405. I believe the duty to intervene was made mandatory after the Nuremberg trials on that principle that you don't stand by and follow orders when something unethical takes place. And I like that it has protection for employees who do come forward when they witness abuses of power. But I also think there should be a punishment too for those who do not step forward and while witnessing abuse. I think that is an offense in itself to not speak as powers are being abused and people are getting tortured, killed, etc., as has happened to so many. Moving on to 406. I think this is a good start, but I'm a little hesitant to, I'd like there to be an amendment for weapons that we don't think of right away when there are military. There are things like that have been used, like tear gas and billy clubs and things that are not less than lethal, but still have the potential to cause great permanent damage to people. And I think there needs to be a caveat in this ordinance to ban the procurement of tear gas and beanbags and other weapons that can cause that kind of intense damage. And moving on to 410, the Stop the Violence Fund. I like the idea, but I don't think it's fair to take the funds from police salaries and the recruit allowance and just put a hiring freeze on the department. I think this money should come out of the pockets of the top brass who were responsible for the negligent conduct and the violence on June 1st. I keep bringing that up. I don't want people to forget it. We shouldn't. It's important that we remember that our First Amendment rights were silenced violently. And so I think that's a punishment to the people who were on the ground rather than the people who were giving the orders. And I think the money should come out of their pockets instead. And for 487, I wish I read this in more detail prior to this meeting, but generally I would say yes, we shouldn't have police allowed to give chokeholds. Although I'm sure that there's going to be a lot of loopholes in there too. So I hope the specifics of 487 are set in stone.
Thank you very much. That brings us to Joshua Zanson.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Welcome.
Hello, City Council members. This is my first public hearing, so thank you for allowing me to speak. My name is Joshua Zanson. I'm a resident of Squirrel Hill, and I'm calling to voice my support for the creation of a Stop the Violence Fund focused on preventing violence and criminal activity through addressing and ameliorating the root causes of violence and crime in our communities. Such social work is crucial to building strong communities and addressing the structural inequality and racism that begets violence and crime. Investing funds in strengthening communities and working towards combating systemic structural injustice will be a much more effective use of city funds than police spending, which seeks only to curtail the symptoms of the societal illness rather than heal the illness itself. In fact, racist policing exacerbates the structural inequalities and racism behind such violence in our communities. Funds allocated to the police department fuel a vicious cycle where the racist institution of the police deepens the wounds of inequality and racism in our communities. I further support the hiring freeze and redirection of $250,000, which is a mere 0.2% of the police budget, from Pittsburgh Police Hiring Allowance to the Stop the Violence Fund. However, such initiatives are only the first step towards promoting equity and justice in Pittsburgh. The effectiveness of the Stop the Violence Fund would be increased tremendously if it were allocated as much as 10%, around $11 million, of the Pittsburgh police budget immediately in the 2020 and 2021 budgets, rather than the rolling schedule indicated. 6 years to get up to speed is too long for those in our most vulnerable communities. Further increasing the funds allocated to the Stop the Violence Fund while decreasing the funds allocated to perpetuate the racist policing system is key in ensuring that the fund is able to effectively carry out its mission of community building from the get-go. Furthermore, I support the ordinances to ban chokeholds, prohibit the police acquisition of military equipment, and implement a duty to intervene. These are small but necessary steps long overdue in preventing inimical and often tragic abuses of power by the police department onto the citizens of Pittsburgh. In summary, the creation of a Stop the Violence Fund is a long overdue step in promoting equity and justice through investing in our communities in the city of Pittsburgh. Choosing to fund such an initiative focused on community building while cutting back the power of a racist policing institution and system is both a worthy and necessary act and should be the first of many initiatives focused on funding communities and defunding racist institutions. I yield my time.
Thank you very much, and welcome to Council. Our next speaker is Carmen Rinquist. Carmen, it's your time.
Hi. Hello, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. Good evening. I am Carmen Rinquist. I live in Beachview. I'm a software engineer, a real estate investor, and I am also a police brutality survivor. Throughout my 41 years, I have seen over and over again law enforcement being counterproductive to actual crime prevention. If you take the time to genuinely listen to people who have been harmed by police, you will have no choice but to conclude that police are driving people to commit more crime, not less. When I was in my early 20s, I talked someone down when he was about to murder one of my friends with a knife. Neither myself nor the victim called the police, and we stand by that decision. But it sure would have been helpful if there had been some sort of mental health professional we could have called. Despite the system being set up to protect rich white people like myself, I know I would be better off dealing with a knife-wielding maniac on my own instead of calling the police. Something needs to change. The proposals today do not go nearly far enough, but they are a good first step. First, the duty to intervene, which should already be a basic expectation. Part of my job is to make sure other software developers aren't doing anything inappropriate. This is a basic concept in practically every profession out there. The idea that this is not already required of police is terrifying. Next is the proposal to demilitarize. Again, common sense. We are trying to affect social change for our communities, which are struggling with poverty and mental health issues. We are not fighting supervillains. Militarized police serve no purpose other than to alienate peaceful citizens and force criminals deeper into their life of crime. We also have a proposal to take $250,000, which represents less than 1/4% of the police budget. When a city spends over $100 million per year on police, but only a tiny fraction of that on mental health, youth diversions, and other social programs that have been proven to actually reduce crime, we have a serious problem that is only going to spiral out of control in the coming years. You have the opportunity to make a difference here. You can be on the right side of history. You can reduce crime, improve our economy, increase respect for law enforcement, increase respect for government and yourselves, protect the lives of citizens and police, and address the actual issues that cause crime. I'd like to beg you to please support these initiatives today, but recognize that we need so much more. Please show me that you have the courage to do the right thing. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And I was remiss in not saying earlier, we are joined by Councilman Anthony Coghill. That takes us to our next speaker, which is Cedric Rudolph. Mr. Rudolph. Cedric Rudolph. Hello, we can see you.
Hi,
Can't hear
can
you.
you hear me?
I can hear you now.
Okay, hi. I also would just like to second that I support the initiatives today. I do feel like we can go further, that the chokehold initiative for one, I think is needed, but I think that also greater reform on a larger level will be needed as well. And I definitely support taking a step back, looking at Pittsburgh's policing in general, demilitarizing the police, and in diverting funds to social and mental health resources instead of to the police department. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That brings us to what I have as my last scheduled speaker, which is Fernando Soriano.
Hi, hello, can you all hear me?
Yes.
So I would like to similarly kind of go down the line of some of the discussed legislation or policies whatsoever for today's hearing. So the first one, 2020-0404, the ordinance discussing the Stop the Violence Fund. My understanding is that something relating to this was discussed within City Council chambers in 2018. And a large part of that was trying to address some of this money and putting it back into public safety or the police department, whereas social services and what was discussed from some of the previous speakers, such as services which would seek to address the underlying circumstances which generate violence, as we are discussing this, might not necessarily be a priority in that regard. So I also raised the concern of transparency and stakeholder inclusion. So this is also an ongoing conversation, of course, but I believe that this Stop the Violence Fund needs to prioritize kind of stakeholder inclusion, transparency of the budget and funds, as well as kind of social investment and investment in the communities themselves, rather than continuing to put money into things such as police enforcement, especially when I believe it to be fact that police enforcement does not reduce crime, it just polices it itself. It isn't a solution to the issues that the communities face. As it pertains to 2020-04-05, similarly, it's kind of remarkable that this needs to be introduced. However, I just have a variety of reservations considering the fact that there's a variety of different studies that have shown that, police officers generally don't report serious criminal violations involving abuse of authority by fellow officers. I know for a fact from a Department of Justice study with a sample size of about 899 police officers, when they asked the question as to whether they always report these criminal violations of fellow officers, 58.5% of them disagreed. So there needs to be some kind of teeth or enforcement, a democratically elected police review board that has the power to be able to hold our officers accountable. And this definitely needs to be enshrined, where we need to have this duty of intervention, but there also needs to be very clear outlining of procedures and punishment for people who deviate from this policy. In regards to 2020-04-06, of course, I also agree with this.
I think we lost Fernando.
His time was up.
Oh, his time was up. Okay. So that is our last scheduled speaker. We will now move to comments by members of council. I will take you in the order in which I see you on my screen, which is Councilwoman Strasburger, Councilwoman Gross, Councilman Wilson, and finally Councilman Coghill, and then I'll give some final remarks. Councilwoman Strasburger.
Thank you, Reverend Burgess. I actually don't have any comments today. I will reserve my comments for what I hope will be a robust discussion at some of the upcoming post-agenda hearings, and maybe some future public hearings. So thank you for the opportunity, and I want to thank all of the speakers for attending today.
Councilwoman Gross.
Wonderful, thank you. I also want to thank the speakers for coming out, and to say that, as I've said before, I think it's energizing and it's moving how many people are engaging in public comment at our council meetings, at our public hearings, and contacting us on email, by phone call, sending us petitions, sending us handwritten notes. So I really want to thank the public in driving this conversation forward. you are succeeding in making sure that we are prioritizing this discussion. And this is just the beginning. I think as many people realize, we have a number of other post agendas and public hearings, and we will continue to kind of drive this conversation around legislative changes that need to happen and also budgetary changes that the people are calling for. So it's going to, if this isn't the end, so, and these aren't the only legislative changes that council members will be bringing forward. So know that as well, that this is kind of iterative and deliberative in its structure on purpose, so that you are all heard and can have a voice. So thank you all for participating.
Thank you very much. Councilman Wilson.
Yes, thanks for taking the lead on this, Councilman Burgess and Councilman Lavelle on these several of these bills here. Also, thank the public. I appreciate having your, sitting here, hearing your voice, and looking forward to tomorrow. I don't have much to say, but I'm really looking forward to the discussion tomorrow and to see where we're at. To really show the public where the city's at with some of these bills already, and how this will improve the police relations, and what within our power can we have done that will be essentially more accountability and better community relations in the future. So thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Coghill.
Yes, Rev, first I want to say, in talking this morning about the CPRB, I was really happy to hear you were talking to the police and not at the police. You told me you had Wendell Histrich and Scott Schubert, and they're in full agreement of that. I think that's very important through everything that we're going to do here. Obviously we're going to have changes, and we need changes. When it comes to demilitarizing the police or defunding the police, I'm going to reserve judgment until we actually talk to the police and we have them at the table. I like to hear from the horse's mouth. I'd like to know what they need and, what possible responsibilities we can take off of them. I had a hostage situation here in Beachview just the other day. And I got to tell you, I can't say enough about what the Pittsburgh police did. They blocked the roads off. They just had everything completely under control, calming neighbors, directing traffic. Now, I would say there was probably about 30 police officers there. So questions like that are gonna be hard questions. Is that necessary? Could we send a social worker there? Well, it turns out the woman had a knife, so that changes it. So I do want to say, I really look forward to talking at the post agendas with the Pittsburgh police. I think, number one, we got to talk policies, tactics, and procedures. I'm really proud of the Pittsburgh police, what they did through our protest. I think it could really be used as a model other than one incident. And, so I really look forward to that conversation. And Rev, I'm here. It's a listening tour for me right now, but I plan to be very involved. So thanks for your leadership.
So let me just say a couple of quick things. I want to thank Director Histrich and Chief Schubert for their partnership in having these conversations. I think, I'm not sure if any of you are, I'm now talking about my age now. When I first came on council, we introduced legislation for the police to produce an annual report. And it took us 18 months of negotiation to get that passed, of actually working with the police over 18 months until we came to a place that we could both agree. And so I think that's probably, when we go forward, the conversation is really not about the police. Pittsburgh has, in many ways, since I've been a member of council, it has changed its police force in many, many ways, from cameras in cars and cameras on officers to ShotSpotter and to implicit bias training, that we have been leading the way of training officers to be more responsive to the community. And I know that. I think the real conversation that we have to have is, what does policing look like moving forward? It's not a question of simply either or. we know that we need protection and police play a vital role. At the same time, we know we also have to invest in the root causes of poverty, of root causes of violence, which include poverty, undereducation, and systematic racism. So really the question is moving forward, and it's really a council question, really, what do we prioritize? How do we spend our money? Our budget is a statement of our priorities. And so the tough conversation is not going to happen really even today or at this bed legislation. The real hard conversation happens after recess, right? As we begin to move the financial picture of the city, given COVID-19, what are our priorities? What are our essentials? What do we invest in? And so I'm going to have that conversation. I think it's a good conversation to have. All of us love our city. I think all of us love all of our residents. And so we have to decide together what's in the best interest of our city. And I look forward to working with all of you to make that happen. Again, I want to thank the clerk, David Feiner, the Cable Bureau, all those people who've helped make this a public hearing happen. With that, is there any other conversation? If there's no other conversation, I'll accept the motion to adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
Need a second?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposers, nay. We are adjourned. Thank you very much. Have a